Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dog Q&A. This is number 25, and today I'm going to give you 5 examples of how dogs think. And these are the main things I hear the most controversy about. So I picked the top 5, and we're going to talk about those today so we can better understand them and understand how our dogs think. Okay, so first up, I'm going to play some videos today and show you some pictures. And right now, let me start off with our first picture here. Okay, so basically, dogs are, the first one I want to talk about is how dogs learn. And the number one thing I hear is sort of a controversy between, are dogs association-based learners or are they not? And in my experience, they are. And I will show you what I mean. So, you know, when you pull out a treat, sometimes your dog will start offering a bunch of behaviors. That's because your dog has associated doing those behaviors with getting a treat. So I'm going to show you a video here that is going to explain this in another way. And we'll see how the video does on Zoom. So first up, let me drop this picture here, and then we'll go to sharing the screen where this video is. Okay, so let's take a look at this dog who's excited to go for a walk. And I think there's sound on here as well. So, okay, a video example of how dogs learn by association.
We got to walk. Walk. We got to walk. We got to walk. We got to walk. What's there to walk? We got to walk. Got to walk.
Okay, so what's going on in this video? We've got this super excited dog. The owner is saying, let's go for a walk. He's holding a leash and the dog is bouncing up and down with every bit of energy that he has. Well, I believe in this video that the leash is a cue for this dog, that he associates it with going outside and sniffing and doing fun things that he likes. And the cue that the person has added, probably inadvertently, without realizing that he's cueing his dog, is, do you want to go for a walk? And now the dog associates that with going outside and doing things he likes. So right here is a perfect example of an associated learning by a dog. So when you associate things your dog likes, food, toys, attention, with the things in his world that don't have any previous association, that may even be negative to him, those things become more positive and exciting. So something to keep in mind when you are working with your dog. So now I'm going to go to this second thing on our list. Let me go back to my Zoom here. Next up, we have this famous picture, which you may have seen. Let me get back into my Zoom. You have to bear with me here just a second. I'm so sorry. Let me see if I can get back to my screen share. Here we go. Okay. Apologize for that. I'm still getting the hang of this after 25 sessions. Okay, so next up, we've got this guilty looking dog. Now, this is something that people have a hard time understanding because we really want to anthropomorphize dogs and make them into humans. We only know how we think, and we assume dogs think the same way. However, I heard this story once from a trainer at a conference that summed this up beautifully. Her client swore that her dog would dig through the trash, make a mess on the floor. She would come home and the dog would feel guilty. So to prove that this is not the case, the woman had her take the dog out of the room, and the trainer took the trash out, and she had the owner's consent, of course, and put the trash all over the floor. They brought the dog back in, and the dog did the exact same guilty look. So based on our the first thing we talked about dogs being association-based learners, what do we see from this? Well, we see that the dog is now associating the trash on the floor with the angry owner. It has nothing to do with, oh, I did that and now I feel bad about it. It's when there's trash on the floor, the owner gets really mad, and then I am nervous or upset or afraid or whatever. So something to think about is that your dog does not interpret the world the same way you do, nor does your dog like remember things like you would. Like the dog would come in and just see trash on the floor and not go, well, I did that earlier. So keep that in mind when you're interpreting what's happening with your dog. So really what could have happened is a dog-proof trash can could have gone a long way here, which is what we did with our dog. Okay, so number 2 is dogs do not feel guilty. Number 3, and mind you, these are all kind of hot button topics here. So number 3 is, let me get my picture up here and share this with you. Number 3, do dogs display dominance? And the answer is yes, but I'm going to explain what I mean by this. So there's a balance in a relationship between dogs that keep them from getting into conflict. And one typically will take on a more dominant role, and one will take on a more submissive role. And the dog submitting to the more dominant dog keeps the conflict at bay. The problem is when you'll get into trouble when dogs don't want to submit to each other. That's when you have the conflict. Now, there's a theory from back in the old school harsh training days that you needed to alpha roll your dog in order to force them to submit to you so you could be the pack leader. However, that's not how dogs operate, and they don't see that as a good thing at all. And it's not how they work together. If you alpha roll your dog is simply going to become afraid of you, and it's going to hurt your relationship. Dogs actually willingly submit to each other. And if you build a good relationship with your dog will willingly submit to you and look to you for all the good and fun things in its life. So I'm going to show you a video here that will explain this further. And this video is so great at explaining what I'm talking about here. So let me pull up the video here. I love this video because it's such an over-the-top example of a puppy displaying a submissive behavior. So let's take a look. You can see in this video, the puppy, the older dog walks by and the puppy is immediately on his back in a full submissive posture, showing all of his vulnerable parts. And the older dog gives him a lot of attention. He wants to play. He's like, I'm no threat to you, rolls over on his back completely. This dog will probably never have a conflict in his entire life. And you could see even at the beginning, I'll show you again. So I'll go back to the beginning really quick and I'll show you right here where he's waving his foot. That's another appeasing behavior. So the dog is showing a lot of great submission here. And yes, we could probably watch this over and over and over because it's so cute. So that is how dogs maintain the balance in their relationship, is not by forcing each other into submission, but one willingly submitting to the other. And this can change depending on the resources in the area, depending on the different things in the dog's environment at that moment. So one important thing here that we need to distinguish is that the dogs are not dominant and submissive. They will display dominance or submission based on the circumstances in that moment. But we cannot characterize an individual dog as dominant or submissive. And that's why there's so much conflict when people talk about this, is that we're trying to give them a characteristic or a title, but really it's a relationship-based behavior that they're doing. So that's number 3, is that dogs do show dominance. However, you cannot categorize a dog as a dominant dog. Okay, so number 4. Now this one is, I think a lot of people understand this now. Number 4 is that most dogs do not like hugs. So when you look at this picture, you should get a little uncomfortable because that dog is extremely uncomfortable. And there's a reason that most dog bites inflicted to children are from their pet dog. And it's because we don't understand how the dogs are communicating. We think of it as, oh, they need to love our children or their sibling or whatever you refer to your kids as in relationship to your dog. But the dog just sees another person who doesn't have a lot of boundaries, doesn't understand their communication. And so when we look at this picture, we've got a dog who is, first of all, leaning away from the child. The ears are back. The whites of the eyes are showing, which is showing a lot of stress. The brow is wrinkled and furrowed here. That's an extremely stressed dog. And you can see the mouth is tight and closed, and you can see all the muscles in the face are very tight. And even if you don't see any of that, you can tell the dog's leaning away from her. That dog does not see a hug as an affectionate thing. A hug to a dog is a full body restraint. So what we need to realize is that dogs interpret things differently than we do. So for us, a hug is a warm embrace. For a dog, it's a restraint that could mean something. It means they can't get away. They lost their freedom. Something bad might be happening. They don't have the freedom to make decisions for themselves, so they feel trapped. Now, let me say this. I'm going to give this caveat. So I'm going to switch to a different picture here and show you a different kind of hug. This is our old dog, Maddie. And if you look at her, this is my husband, that was her favorite person in the world. She would come up to him and wait for a hug. She literally that was just her favorite thing, was to be hugged and held, especially by Jeremy. Now, here's another picture of my niece hugging Maddie. And this was later when she didn't have her front teeth anymore after a surgery, her tongue sticking out. But Cameron hugged her and she asked me first. And I said, yes, Maddie loves hugs. So she gave her a hug. Maddie wrapped her head around Cameron's neck and actually kind of hugged her back. So we cannot say that all dogs don't like hugs. But we can say that a hug to a dog is not what they think it is. It's not what we think it is to them. And some dogs can be made to tolerate it, and some actually do like it. But what I tell people is err on the side of dogs don't like it, especially from a stranger. If they don't know you, that most dogs are not going to tolerate a full body restraint from a stranger. So something to keep in mind just in interacting with dogs in general. Okay, so next up, close out these pictures here. We're going to go to number 5. Last on our list here is we have a dog's primary sense is smell. So this is something I think we forget a lot, that dogs interpret the world mostly through their nose. So we as humans perceive 80% of all impressions through our eyes, through our sense of sight. But to understand how dogs think, we have to understand how they interpret the world, which is through their nose. So one great example, this is such a perfect example for this, is when we look at something like this. So if you walked into the room and saw that, you would think, oh, spaghetti sauce, it smells so good. But if a dog walked in and the same spaghetti sauce was cooking on the stove, they would go, oh, I smell oregano, beef, noodles, onions, tomatoes, olive oil, garlic, all kinds of the ingredients. So dogs don't smell one thing like we do. They smell every single ingredient in the thing. So when they go outside, they don't just smell one thing, they smell all of it together. Just to give you a little statistics here, we have 6 million olfactory receptors. A dog has 300 million. That's quite a difference. We have 12 to 40 million olfactory neurons that transmit the odor information to our brains. A dog has 220 million to 2 billion. A dog's sense of smell is 10,000 to 100,000 times better than ours. And if you want to look at the dogs with the best sense of smell, you need to look at the hounds, because they are truly the masters of scent and smell. So I'll put my nose back up here. Close this one out. So in order to understand our dogs, we have to remember that this is how they interpret the world, through their nose. So when you're outside with your dog and you get frustrated because they're not paying attention to you, think about all the smells in the environment and be grateful that your dog will pay attention to you at all. And that's why you have to take high value rewards with you on your walk, so you can get your dog to pay attention to you and overcome all of those distractions that are going on. So, okay, so that's it. Number 5 is your dog's sense of smell is their most valuable asset, their top priority, their strongest sense. So that's it for this week. I think we hit every hot button topic that we have out there today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please join my YouTube channel or subscribe to my Facebook group, my dog training group. And if you want to come on a Zoom, if you have a dog issue, we can come on and talk about it. And then you can be a guest on the show one of these weeks. And if you want to be a guest, you can email me at casperscanines@gmail.com. And that's it for today. Thank you everyone for joining me, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.